If you are over 60 years old, there is something you might be doing every single night, something that seems harmless, but could silently push you toward your very first stroke. No pain, no dizziness, no warning signs at all. You go to sleep just like any other night, but the next morning, half of your face no longer moves. Your arm won't lift, your speech becomes slurred. You wake up, but you are no longer yourself. Did you know? More than 40% of strokes in older adults happen during sleep, and the cause is not your diet, not smoking, but incorrect sleeping positions and nighttime habits that seem completely innocent. As a brain specialist, I have seen far too many patients wake up with part of their body no longer functioning, just because of a habit they had followed all their lives without knowing the danger. Resting the arm under the head, sleeping with the blanket covering the entire head, lying flat without a pillow, sleeping on the wrong side. In today's video, I am going to show you the 6 most dangerous sleeping positions and habits. They can reduce blood flow to your brain, cause blood clots to form, and increase your risk of having a stroke while in deep sleep. If you or your loved ones are entering your 60s, you really should watch this video all the way through, because one small change might be the very thing that helps you stay sharp, stay mobile, and stay independent for longer. And before we begin, if you find this information valuable, please hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and type the number 1 in the comments if you have ever woken up feeling exhausted, even after a full night's sleep. Type 0 if you have not, so I know whether this content is something you need. Now, let's dive in. Sleeping in a recliner, a habit that seems harmless, could be silently damaging your brain. Do you wake up each morning in your familiar armchair with an aching back, heavy legs, and a dizzy head that feels like it never truly rested? You are not alone. Many older adults in the United States are choosing to sleep sitting up, not because they want to, but because they feel like they have no other choice. When sleep becomes more difficult, due to joint pain, acid reflux, shortness of breath, or back pain, that living room recliner can feel like a lifesaver. All you need to do is lean the seat back a bit, let the television play softly, pull up a light blanket, and that is it. It feels just right, not painful, not uncomfortable. But what feels comfortable is not always safe. In fact, sleeping in a semi-reclined position, where your body is tilted at about 45 to 60 degrees, is the perfect setup for a blood clot to form. Especially in people over the age of 60. The human body is designed to rest in a flat, horizontal position, where blood and oxygen are evenly distributed to every organ. But when you sleep on a slant, gravity starts to interfere. Blood pools in the lower limbs, circulation slows down, and veins in your hips and legs get compressed. The result? Blood flow is no longer smooth, it thickens. It stagnates, and this becomes a fertile ground for blood clots to form. In younger people, the body can still regulate these changes. But after age 60, everything shifts. Blood becomes thicker due to dehydration. Blood vessels narrow with age, and the heart pumps less efficiently, all of which make the circulatory system more fragile. And all it takes is one small clot traveling to the brain for a stroke to happen in your sleep. I will never forget the case of Mrs. Elaine Morris, a 76-year-old retired elementary school teacher in Ohio. She loved nature and enjoyed gardening. After a fall down the stairs, she could no longer lie flat in bed due to hip pain. So, she switched to sleeping in her recliner. At first, it was only meant to last a few weeks, but it turned into years. Every morning, she would wake up with mild swelling in her legs, tightness around her ankles, and occasional dizziness when standing up, but she assumed it was just part of getting older. Until one morning, her son found her unresponsive, her face blank, and her right arm barely moving. An MRI revealed a small ischemic stroke deep in her brain, a type of stroke that comes without any clear warning signs. Elaine had no atrial fibrillation, no history of heart disease, but the doctors concluded that the most likely cause was poor circulation from prolonged sleep in a seated position. Sleeping upright also disrupts your body's ability to regulate blood pressure. When you lie flat, your autonomic nervous system, especially the baroreceptors, helps keep blood pressure balanced between your brain and heart. But in a reclined position, this system weakens, making nighttime blood pressure swings more likely. This is especially dangerous for older adults who are taking heart medications or are dehydrated. If you often sleep sitting up, or know someone who does this every night, consider this a serious warning. Sleep is not just for resting, it is when your body repairs itself and protects your brain. And that only happens when you sleep in the correct position. If you are medically unable to lie flat, opt for a hospital-style bed that allows you to elevate your upper body. Or use a firm wedge pillow to lift your torso without putting pressure on your hips. And do not forget to stretch your legs and move gently to keep blood flowing better. Today, Mrs. Elaine has returned to sleeping in her bed, with her head slightly elevated and her hips supported by a pillow. She shared, "I thought I was doing something that felt good for my body. Turns out, I was doing the most dangerous thing without even knowing it." Many people think risks come from moving too much. But for older adults, the real danger often comes from staying still for too long, in the wrong position. And if you think sleeping in a recliner is bad, just wait until you find out what happens when you sleep flat on your back with no pillow at all. A very common position that is actually a silent enemy of your brain health. Sleeping flat on your back without a pillow, what seems like a simple comfort, could actually lead to a stroke. Some habits follow us for decades, and because they feel so familiar, we never stop to question whether they might be harmful. One of those habits is sleeping flat on your back, without a pillow, with your head level with your heart and your arms resting by your sides, as if you are in a fully relaxed state. Many older adults choose this position because they believe it helps relieve spinal pressure, opens up the chest, and allows for deeper breathing. Others formed this habit years ago, in the military, in hospitals, or during long years of hard labor, and see no reason to change it now. But once you pass the age of 60, your body does not work the way it did when you were 30. Especially the blood vessels in your brain, the vital pathways that carry oxygen and nutrients to your brain every single night. And when you lie completely flat, with no elevation at the head, you are forcing your circulatory system to work harder, pushing blood back from the brain toward the heart, against the pull of gravity. With veins that have already narrowed and stiffened with age, blood can easily begin to pool in the head, and that does not just leave you feeling lightheaded in the morning. It creates the perfect environment for a blood clot to form while you sleep. I clearly remember the story of Mr. Harold Benson, a 78-year-old retired electrician from Kansas, a meticulous, methodical man who lived by routine. Every night, he would lie flat on a firm mattress, never using a pillow. Sleeping this way is the most natural, no pressure on the neck. He would tell his children and grandchildren. Until one morning, his wife Helen noticed he could not speak clearly. One side of his face was drooping, and he could not lift his right arm. At the hospital, doctors confirmed he had suffered a major middle cerebral artery stroke, caused by a blood clot blocking blood flow to a large part of the left brain. No one thought a long-standing sleep position could be the cause. But after a vascular scan, doctors discovered that Harold's carotid arteries had hardened with age. Years of sleeping with his head level to his heart had allowed blood to build up in the brain and slow down, creating a pooling area where a clot could form at any moment. Harold was fortunate to survive, but he could never return to the life he once had. He needed assistance to bathe, used a walker to move around, and could no longer spend hours reading, something he loved most. The truth is, sleeping completely flat is no longer suitable for the aging body. As we grow older, the brain needs help to keep blood flowing efficiently. Elevating your head just 20 to 30 degrees, which is about 8 to 12 inches, or 20 to 30 centimeters, can make a huge difference. It reduces pressure inside the skull, helps veins drain blood out of the head, and prevents nighttime oxygen shortages. You do not need expensive medical equipment. A firm wedge pillow, or even two standard pillows stacked together, can provide the right incline. What matters most is that your head and neck are not bent forward. Make sure your chin does not touch your chest when lying down. This is especially important if you have a history of high blood pressure, suffer from atrial fibrillation or carotid artery narrowing, snore or have sleep apnea, or take blood pressure medications or diuretics. Sleeping flat without elevating your head can be a serious risk you should not ignore. Mr. Harold once told me during a follow-up visit, his voice slower and shaky, "If someone had warned me earlier that the way I slept could lead to something like this, I would have changed a long time ago. Today, I am sharing his story with you, so you do not have to look back with regret over something you could have prevented tonight. Sleeping on your stomach, the cozy trap that could steal your memory, your balance, and even your life. Have you ever thought that the sleeping position that makes you feel safe and cradled could actually be putting your brain in danger? Sleeping face down, commonly known as sleeping on your stomach, might seem harmless. But it is actually one of the most dangerous sleep positions for brain health. Especially once you reach the age of 60. Many older adults switch to sleeping on their stomachs because of lower back pain or the feeling that it is easier to breathe. That slight pressure across the chest makes them drift off more easily. But that feeling of deep sleep may be hiding risks that most doctors never warn about. In younger people, stomach sleeping might not cause serious problems. But for older adults, whose blood vessels have aged, circulation has slowed, and oxygen absorption is weaker, this position can restrict blood flow to the brain for 6 to 8 hours every single night. When you sleep face down, your head must turn to one side to breathe. This compresses key arteries in the neck, especially the vertebral arteries, which supply blood to the cerebellum, the part of the brain that controls balance and coordination. On top of that, pressure from a soft pillow or mattress can squeeze the carotid arteries, reducing blood flow into the brain and blocking blood from draining out through the neck veins. This slowdown in circulation, when combined with overnight blood pressure fluctuations, can lead to blood clot formation. And if that clot travels to the brain in the early morning, it can trigger a stroke, or even sudden death before you have a chance to wake up. I have seen many such cases, but one I will never forget is that of Mrs. Louise Grant, an 80-year-old retired librarian from Tennessee. She was a kind, book-loving woman who had lived her whole life without any major health problems. Louise had been sleeping on her stomach since she was young. After retirement, hip pain made her even more inclined toward that position. She said it felt like a soft hug around her chest that helped her sleep better. But one morning in March, her daughter found her unconscious, her face lopsided, and one side of her body completely still. At the hospital, doctors diagnosed her with a large ischemic stroke in the cerebellum, even though she had no history of high blood pressure or diabetes. Scans revealed significant narrowing of her carotid arteries. Years of pressure while sleeping on her stomach, especially with her head turned, had slowed blood circulation. A single small clot that formed overnight changed her life completely. Louise survived, but she could no longer walk without assistance. It was just a sleeping position. I never imagined it could nearly kill me. She shared during a follow-up visit. Sleeping on your stomach also makes it harder for your lungs to fully expand, leading to lower oxygen levels in the blood and higher levels of carbon dioxide. This imbalance puts extra strain on both the heart and brain. And older adults, whose response systems are slower, often do not wake up to adjust their position when oxygen levels drop, leaving them in a dangerous state all night without realizing it. The risk is even greater if you have any of the following conditions: snoring or sleep apnea, use of sleep aids or sedatives, a very soft mattress that lets your head sink in deeply, cervical osteoporosis, or a history of narrowed blood vessels. If you usually sleep on your stomach, it is time to make a change. Start training yourself to sleep on your side, ideally the left side, with a firm pillow that keeps your neck and head aligned with your spine. Your head should be slightly elevated to reduce pressure on the neck and to help blood flow to the brain. This is not a change to help you sleep more comfortably. It is a change to help you avoid a preventable stroke. Because that soft, safe feeling you get tonight could be the very reason you wake up tomorrow in a rehabilitation hospital. If you are lucky. Pulling the blanket over your head while you sleep, peaceful habit. Or invisible trap for your brain? Have you ever wrapped yourself up in a blanket, pulling it all the way over your head like a cocoon, just to recapture that childhood feeling of safety? Maybe you do it to block out the room light, the television in the next room, or simply because you feel calm when surrounded by darkness and warmth. Many people, especially older adults, keep this habit every night, like a personal bedtime ritual. But what no one tells you is this: when you sleep with your head completely covered, you are not just blocking out light and noise, you are also cutting off the oxygen supply your brain needs to survive the night. When your head is sealed inside the low air pocket of a blanket, oxygen gradually decreases, while carbon dioxide, the waste gas from your breath, rises hour by hour. At age 30, your body can sense low oxygen and wake you up to adjust. But at age 70 or 80, the body's response is slower, sometimes too slow. And so, just as you enter your deepest sleep, your brain is quietly struggling to find enough oxygen. I once treated Mr. George Lawton, an 82-year-old retired watch repairman from Wisconsin, a gentle, orderly man who lived with precision and care. In the winter, he often burrowed deep under his heavy comforter, pulling it fully over his head to stay warmer. He said, light disturbed his sleep, so he felt this helped him rest better. Until one morning, his wife Clara noticed he had been lying still for too long. When she tried to wake him, he did not respond as usual. Although he was still breathing, he was barely aware of his surroundings. At the hospital, doctors confirmed he had suffered a minor stroke, caused by a blood clot blocking a small vessel in the brain. His blood gas readings showed extremely low oxygen levels upon arrival. George had no heart problems, did not smoke, and had shown no warning signs. But the prolonged oxygen deprivation overnight, combined with age-related slow circulation, was more than enough to quietly trigger a blood clot. You might be thinking, is a little oxygen loss really that serious? But the truth is, even mild oxygen shortage during sleep can cause blood to thicken, the heart to beat faster, and blood pressure to swing unpredictably. These small, constant changes put the brain's blood vessels under strain all night, especially dangerous if you already have hardened arteries or are mildly dehydrated. It all happens silently. You do not feel suffocated. You still sleep soundly. You still dream, but your brain is in survival mode, inside the suffocating microclimate you have created under that blanket. If you, or someone you care about, sleeps with a blanket pulled over the head, it is time to reconsider. Use a sleep mask to block out light instead of covering your head. Wear earplugs if the room is noisy. Keep the room warm enough so you do not need a heavy blanket over your face. Choose lighter, breathable bedding, especially during colder months. This is not just about sleeping more comfortably, it is about making sure your brain gets steady oxygen all night long, which is essential to preventing stroke, memory decline, and motor impairment as you age. George has now let go of that old habit. He sleeps with a moderately firm pillow, a small warm-colored nightlight, and a blanket that only reaches his chest. During a recent checkup, he held my hand and said, "Doctor, you know, I thought I was taking the best care of myself. Turns out, I was quietly hurting myself." He is not alone. Millions of people are doing the same thing, sleeping in a way that feels safe, while their brains are being quietly starved, minute by minute. And the most frightening part, you never even know it is happening. Tossing and turning all night, a quiet signal that your brain is calling for help. Do you often find yourself shifting in bed, turning from one side to the other, sometimes waking up in the middle of the night for no clear reason? You might think it is just part of getting older because of joint pain, nighttime trips to the bathroom, or simply not sleeping as deeply as you used to. But what if I told you that constant tossing and turning during sleep could be a sign that your brain is struggling against the early stages of a stroke? As a neurologist, I want you to understand this clearly. Sleep is not just when the body rests, it is when the brain restores itself, clears out toxins, and rebalances blood circulation. And when that process is repeatedly interrupted, night after night, something dangerous may be silently building up. Every time you turn sharply, adjust your head, or twist your neck during sleep, the flow of blood to the brain can shift. In younger people, blood vessels are still flexible, and the brain can adapt. But in someone aged 70 or 80, with hardened arteries, fragile vessel walls, and slower circulation, even small movements during sleep can cause temporary reductions in blood supply to the brain, too brief to feel, but extremely dangerous. I remember clearly the case of Mrs. Martha Ramirez, a 75-year-old from New Mexico. A gentle woman, she had spent over 30 years teaching kindergarten. She took good care of herself, ate healthily, and walked every day, but she always felt tired. Even after a full night's sleep, her husband recalled, she turned constantly all night, changing position every 10 minutes. Then one morning, Martha woke up with a tingling sensation in her right hand and slurred speech. At the hospital, Doctors confirmed she had experienced a minor stroke a few hours before waking. A sleep study revealed that every time she rolled over, the blood flow to her brain dipped, a condition known as hypoperfusion. This had been happening silently for months, until a clot formed in her neck and traveled to the brain during early morning blood pressure swings. It was not due to heart disease. It was not caused by high cholesterol. It was the result of chronically disrupted sleep. Poor sleep, especially a lack of deep REM sleep, prevents blood pressure from falling to its normal restorative levels. Instead, it remains high or unstable. Similar to daytime, cortisol, the stress hormone, does not drop as it should. In fact, it can spike in the morning, right at the time strokes are most likely to occur. And beyond that, the glymphatic system, the brain's self-cleaning mechanism, is interrupted. This leads to inflammation and long-term damage to blood vessels. Have you ever noticed these signs? Waking up in a cold sweat, with a racing heart, numbness in your hands, a heavy head, or slight imbalance in the morning. Feeling like you slept all night but still feel completely drained. Do not brush it off. It is not just a part of aging. It is a signal that your brain is experiencing repeated mini episodes of oxygen shortage while you sleep. So what can you do? Reduce stimulation in the evening. Avoid caffeine, alcohol, and screens close to bedtime. Create a stable sleep environment. Keep the room cool, dark, and quiet. Use lightweight layered blankets instead of a heavy one. Use a body pillow or joint support pillow. This helps stabilize your posture and reduces unconscious tossing. Stay hydrated in the evening, but avoid drinking too close to bedtime. And if you find yourself frequently waking in the night, or if someone tells you that you move constantly in your sleep, consider getting a sleep study. That information could protect your brain before it is too late. Today, Martha uses a neck support pillow, practices deep breathing before bed, and never ignores signs of early morning fatigue. She once told me, "I never imagined that shallow sleep could nearly take away my memory, my ability to speak, and my independence, but it did, and it could happen to anyone. Because when the brain is not truly resting, it will find a way to raise the alarm, and sometimes, a stroke is the loudest signal of all." Sleeping on your right side with your hand under your head, a cozy position that can fool both your heart and your brain. Imagine yourself drifting off to sleep, lying on your right side, hugging a soft pillow, with one hand tucked under your head just like you have done for decades. It feels familiar, like returning to a safe spot. No pain, no discomfort, perhaps the most relaxing position you have ever tried. But that comfort may be the very reason why blood flow to your brain is being restricted for hours every night, without you ever realizing it. When you sleep on your right side and rest your head on your arm, you are placing pressure on the major highways that carry blood to and from your brain, the carotid artery and the subclavian artery. If these are compressed during deep sleep, blood flow slows down, veins get squeezed, and circulation is disrupted. When circulation slows, blood begins to thicken. In older adults, where arteries are already stiff, vascular reflexes are weak, and blood tends to clot more easily. Even a small clot can form while you sleep. It will wait until your blood pressure rises slightly in the early morning, and as you turn, stand up, or even yawn, it gets pushed along. Within seconds, your brain may be deprived of blood. I remember the case of Mr. Walter Green, a 74-year-old from Nebraska, a former aerospace technician. Meticulous, tidy, and still climbing onto rooftops to clean gutters in his 70s. He once said that sleeping on his right side, with his hand under his head, was the only way he could fall asleep. One morning, he woke up unable to move the left side of his body. His wife called for emergency help right away. At the hospital, doctors confirmed he had suffered an ischemic stroke in the motor region of the right brain, caused by a clot blocking the middle cerebral artery. What was surprising, he did not smoke, did not have high blood pressure, and had normal cholesterol. But an ultrasound of his carotid arteries showed significant narrowing and signs of long-term sluggish blood flow on the right side of his neck, the exact side he always slept on. Walter survived, but now uses a walker and can no longer drive. During a follow-up visit, he held my hand and said, "If someone had told me that the way I lay my head could change my entire life, I would not have waited this long to change. You see, Sleeping position is not just about comfort. It directly affects brain circulation, nerve pressure, and your body's ability to recover during sleep. When you place your hand under your head or pillow, you are also compressing the brachial plexus, a complex network of nerves in the shoulder area. This can cause numbness and pain in the arm, but more importantly, it may interfere with nerve signals that regulate heart function, blood pressure, and breathing. It all happens quietly, without waking you, but your brain is recording every small disruption. In older adults, the consequences are more serious. Arteries are less flexible. Blood is less agile than it used to be. Blood pressure regulation weakens. Stroke risk peaks between 4 o'clock and 6 o'clock in the morning, right when blood pressure surges after sleep. So if you are sleeping on your right side with your hand under your head, it is time to make a change. Shift to sleeping on your left side. This reduces pressure on the heart and supports better circulation. Use a pillow that gently elevates your head and keeps your neck aligned with your spine. Keep your hands relaxed in front of you or at your side, never under your head. A contoured neck pillow can help hold your head in the right position. This small change in how you sleep could be what keeps you speaking clearly, walking steadily, and maintaining your independence. Because you may not feel anything when sleeping in the wrong position, but your brain feels every minute of slowed circulation. And at some point, it will respond. Sleep, you do it every night. But have you ever thought of it as a way to protect your brain? Or just a time to rest? We often think, I sleep fine, nothing to worry about. But after the age of 60, sleep is no longer just a reward at the end of a long day. It becomes the moment that could decide whether you wake up to a normal morning or a sudden stroke. The smallest details, like how you lie down, where your pillow is placed, or where you rest your hands, can make the difference between a night of recovery and a night of risk. You do not need to change everything, but if just one thing in this video made you pause and think, then it is already time to begin. Tonight, try one simple thing. Elevate your head just a little more. Avoid sleeping on your right side. Keep your arms away from pressing against your neck. Drink your water a little earlier. Or simply, share this video with someone you care about. Because small changes each night are how you protect your memory, your speech, your ability to walk, and your independence. If you found this helpful, please click subscribe, turn on notifications so you never miss the next guide made just for you. And if something in this video inspired you to make a change, share it with me in the comments. Type, I will start tonight, if you are ready. Because when you care for your sleep the right way, you are not just sleeping better, you are living longer, living healthier, and living more fully.